Let's talk about some of the highlights of Generation Z. Let's dive into it. What should we be paying attention to and why when it comes to this generation?
Well, probably the most important thing to take notice of and really act on is to understand that it's a much, like as a cohort or as a group, it's a much larger group of people than any that's ever gone before. The population of the world is increasing, obviously, from that generation. There's just, by sheer numbers, more of them, which obviously drives competition. I mean, there's all kinds of implications with that. Also, what I find is very, from a sociological perspective, very interesting to know that the largest population growths are in emerging markets like Africa or Nigeria. Of course, there's India and China, but then Indonesia. That's where the largest groups of young people are actually coming from. Obviously, the United States is pretty large, and there are areas in Europe, but not really a comparison to those emerging markets. So to say that it's a global economy, obviously, like we've all been talking about that for years, like more so now and in the future, the implications or the need or the opportunity to harness and build relationships with young people, which are the future consumers in those other markets.
Yeah, it's interesting that you talk about the global Gen Z market, because I remember early on when people were trying to dissect Gen X and Gen Y, they were really focusing on just the US market. It was just the generation here in the US because of the buying power and so forth. But it's interesting to hear you say that, it's going to be the largest group of people that come up, not just here in the US, but also in other countries as well, second-tier countries and third-tier countries. Have you seen anything? What's the commonalities, and what are the differentiations of some of those groups? Because it's like the age might be the same here and in Africa and China and India, but there's probably got to be a common theme, and maybe there's a difference too.
I mean, there are common themes. I mean, the exposure to information, the connectivity to everyone is so porous, it's so open, porous, so connected. It's not a direct answer, but I think you'll find more and more, and I know you've been seeing this too, but more and more brands don't just have to be U.S. brand to become a global brand. Being a power brand in the U.S. is still key, but you don't have to be. I mean, look at the whole Carhartt thing, driving streetwear trends with Work in Progress. I mean, obviously that's a European movement. The Netherlands has, I think, Baller. I mean, there's a lot of really powerful. This is in streetwear culture, but brands coming from different countries. I think what you find, and I think we have exposure to this. I don't think this is necessarily new, but there's definitely the local, regionalized, country-based culture and heritage that's super key and influential. But you'll see a lot of that regional stuff mattering. Music, fashion is the easiest stuff, but then you will see a lot of commonality, and I think more commonality.
Yeah.
But I disagree that, with what a lot of the trend forecasters will say, it's a global brain now. I don't believe that. I actually think that connectivity to your local, regional, I don't know, your tribal culture, your area, your region, your space is maybe more important than ever before, because people want to stand for something. People want to know what they're connected to. And then when there's more people, there's more confusion, there's more choices, and unique is also going to be like a local and a hyper local and then a regional unique.